Before she retreated into silence behind the walls of a once lively mansion, Penny Marshall was Hollywood royalty. A household name, a laughter maker, a rule breaker. But what really happened in her final years? From groundbreaking success to heartbreaking solitude. Today we unravel the untold story of a legend whose legacy still echoes through Hollywood. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming. The final curtain falls. Every legend has a final act, and for Penny Marshall, it came quietly, far away from the spotlight she once commanded. On December 17, 2018, Penny Marshall passed away at her Hollywood Hills home. She was 75 years old. The world lost a comedy icon. But those close to her had been preparing for this moment for years. Her official cause of death? Cardiopulmonary failure, brought on by cardiac arrest and complicated by type 1 diabetes, a disease she had battled for decades. Back in 2009, Penny had shocked fans when she revealed she was fighting lung cancer, a battle made even more terrifying when it spread to her brain. Against the odds, she beat it into remission, a comeback as dramatic as any Hollywood script. But the scars remained, quietly, hidden. She was fine now, she would later tell the press with a smirk and a shrug, even as her body was still catching up. As her health faded, so too did her public presence. No final press tour, no farewell interviews, just silence. Her cremated remains were laid to rest in a place befitting a star, Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. A cemetery home to legends, Bette Davis, Carrie Fisher, Lucille Ball. But it was her headstone that caught hearts. A simple yet powerful engraving of the letter L, a loving nod to Laverne DeFazio, the scrappy, strong, and unforgettable character that made her famous on Laverne and Shirley. That L, once stitched on her sweaters, was now etched in stone, forever. She was laughter, she was legacy, she was loved. And though Penny Marshall's final curtain had fallen, the stage she built still stands, for every woman who dares to take the director's chair, and every outsider who dreams of something bigger. More than Laverne. Yes, Penny was Laverne, but she was also so much more. To millions of viewers, she was the brassy, lovable Laverne DeFazio, the working-class girl with a thick Bronx accent, a heart of gold, and a cursive L stitched on every sweater. Laverne and Shirley made her a cultural icon, but behind that comedic timing and working girl charm was something even more powerful. A storyteller with a vision, and a fighter with something to prove. In 1988, Penny Marshall did something no woman had ever done before. She stepped behind the camera to direct Big, a whimsical coming-of-age story starring Tom Hanks. At the time, few in Hollywood took female directors seriously, but Penny didn't just prove she could do it, she proved she could succeed. Big became the first film directed by a woman to gross over $100 million at the US box office. That wasn't just a milestone, it was a revolution. And she was just getting started. In 1992, she directed A League of Their Own, a film that wasn't just about women's baseball, but about female strength, sisterhood, and the sacrifices women make in silence. It was funny, it was moving, and it struck a nerve across generations. There's no crying in baseball. That line didn't just make movie history, it became part of our culture. Penny's genius lay in her ability to tell human stories, blending heart, humor, and history in ways that made us laugh, even while wiping away tears. Her characters weren't superheroes, they were real people, flawed, funny, and familiar. But Penny wasn't just directing films. She was carving out space in an industry that rarely welcomed women behind the camera. And she did it without asking permission. She didn't posture, she didn't preach. She simply showed the world what was possible, and then did it again. Her longtime friend and collaborator Tom Hanks later reflected, "Man, did we laugh a lot, wish we still could." And it wasn't just Hanks. From actors to studio execs, everyone respected Penny. Not just for her talent, but for her tenacity. She shattered ceilings not with fanfare, but with focus. She didn't just break into the boys' club. She changed the lock so others could follow. Love, loss, and loneliness. Behind every star is a human story, often messier, more fragile, and more revealing than any script could ever capture. Penny Marshall was funny, bold, and larger than life on screen. But in her private world, she knew pain, heartbreak, and the ache of loneliness. Her journey through love began early. At just 20 years old, Penny married Michael Henry, a college football player she met while attending the University of New Mexico. They were young, in love, dreaming big. In 1964, she gave birth to her only child, a daughter named Tracy. But life came fast, too fast. By 1966, the marriage had ended, leaving Penny a single mother at just 22. She worked whatever jobs she could to get by, choreographing local theater, scraping together rent, and raising her daughter with the kind of stubborn resilience only a Bronx-born woman could manage. That time in her life, she later said, wasn't glamorous, but it made me tough. Then came a second chance at love. In 1971, Penny married Rob Reiner, a rising actor and filmmaker, and someone who truly understood the strange pressures of Hollywood life. Together, they became a powerhouse couple, appearing at premieres, supporting each other's careers, and raising Tracy, whom Reiner legally adopted. For a decade, they navigated the highs and lows of fame as a unit, but by 1981, their marriage too had quietly unraveled. "We grew in different directions," Penny would later say. Not bitter, just honest. Still, they remained close, co-parenting Tracy, sharing in family milestones, and eventually becoming grandparents to 5 grandchildren. In her later years, those grandchildren were among Penny's greatest joys. But love would deal her one more painful blow. In the early 1980s, Penny found happiness again with Larry Breeding, a charming young actor who had appeared on Laverne and Shirley. Their relationship was sweet, full of promise, and tragically short-lived. In 1982, Larry was killed in a car crash. Penny rarely spoke publicly about the depth of her grief, but friends said she was never quite the same. Then, in a surprising turn, she shared a quiet but impactful romance with Art Garfunkel, of Simon and Garfunkel fame. He was struggling with depression. She helped him find light again. She had a way of showing up when people needed her most, one friend recalled. As the years went on and the cameras turned elsewhere, Penny began surrounding herself not with fame, but with loyalty. Her inner circle included close friends like Beverly D'Angelo, Cynthia Hargrave, Chico Brown, and Mercedes Gannon. People who stood by her not for what she did, but for who she was. In a world that too often celebrates the spotlight, Penny found her peace in small dinners, late-night phone calls, and old friendships that had survived it all. She wasn't chasing love anymore, she was treasuring connection. And in that quiet chapter of her life, far from sound stages and red carpets, she finally found something resembling home. Behind the gates of her hidden estate, Hollywood saw her as a star. But behind closed doors, Penny Marshall created something even more extraordinary. A home where the magic was real and the laughter never stopped. In the early 1980s, at the height of her fame, Penny Marshall purchased a sprawling estate tucked into the exclusive Outpost Estates neighborhood in the Hollywood Hills, a secluded pocket of LA known for its panoramic views and old-school glamour. But this wasn't just a celebrity mansion. It was a sanctuary. The house, built in 1953, was a masterpiece of mid-century modern design, elegant, artistic, and full of character. Spanning over 9,500 square feet, it boasted 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, and views that stretched from the Hollywood sign all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Inside, every detail told a story. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls flooded the space with natural light, offering not just sunlight but a sense of openness, peace, and possibility. A dark room paid homage to Penny's love of photography. A safe room, subtly tucked away, hinted at the need for privacy amid public life. And in the wood-paneled drawing room, complete with a vintage wet bar, she hosted intimate conversations and impromptu gatherings with Hollywood's elite. But it was the kitchen, bright, quirky, unapologetically her, that captured Penny's soul best. With watermelon-patterned linoleum flooring and a forest green diner-style booth, it was a time capsule of 1950s Americana, a nod to her Bronx roots and her never-ending affection for nostalgia. Friends said she'd sit there for hours with coffee, cracking jokes, flipping through old photo albums, or just soaking in the view. Even the bedrooms told personal stories. One, covered in baseball-themed wallpaper, celebrated her lifelong passion for sports, immortalized in her film A League of Their Own. Outside, the estate stretched across nearly 2 lush acres, an unimaginable luxury in Los Angeles. A brick patio, a swimming pool with a diving board, and even an olive orchard filled the grounds with Mediterranean charm. And tucked behind the trees, avocado, apple, peach, and plum trees, adding warmth, comfort, and homegrown joy to the property. But perhaps the most unforgettable thing wasn't the design, it was the energy. This was where the real Hollywood gathered. Not the press junkets or the red carpets, but the people. Actors, writers, directors, friends. The estate became a hub for celebration and creativity. It was the site of legendary Oscar after-parties, late-night brainstorm sessions, and joint birthday bashes with her best friend Carrie Fisher. The kind of gatherings where laughter spilled onto patios and movie ideas were born between slices of cake. It wasn't fancy, it was Penny, one friend said. Warm, funny, a little weird, totally unforgettable. After her death in 2018, the house sat quiet for a time, still echoing with memories, still filled with her spirit. In 2020, it was listed for $7.195 million. It eventually sold for about $6 million. A fitting price for a piece of Hollywood history that wasn't just glamorous, but lived in, loved in, and deeply personal. This wasn't just a house, it was a story. Her story. Built into brick and glass and filled with the sounds of a life well lived. Her New York side. If her Hollywood Hills estate was a stage for parties and creativity, then her New York penthouse was the intermission. Private, quiet, and rich with soul. For over 30 years, Penny Marshall kept a retreat in New York City, nestled high above the streets of the Upper West Side. To the public, her life was rooted in Los Angeles. But to those who knew her best, New York was always home. She purchased the apartment in the early 1980s just as her fame from Laverne and Shirley was skyrocketing. Located inside an elegant Emery Roth-designed pre-war building from 1928, the penthouse reflected a different kind of luxury. Less Hollywood, more heritage. Inside, the space was filled with light and artistic whimsy. The living room featured ornate, custom-stained glass windows that scattered color across the walls when afternoon sunlight poured in. It wasn't just beautiful, it was calming, a painter's moment frozen in glass. A fireplace anchored the room, offering real warmth during cold winters and emotional warmth during harder times. Penny often curled up in this space, reading, writing, or simply watching the city sky change with the hours. The kitchen was a tribute to vintage charm. With its original tin ceiling, a throwback to early 20th century craftsmanship, it blended history with the familiar smell of coffee, toasted bagels, and the occasional late-night bowl of cereal. But the crown jewel? A wraparound terrace that curved along the north and west sides of the penthouse. From here, Penny could see it all: Central Park, the shimmering Hudson River, and the rooftops of the city she grew up in. It was rare real estate and even rarer peace. Friends said she loved sitting outside with a mug in hand, listening to the hum of the city far below. It was her moment of stillness, where the laughter from Hollywood gave way to the quiet rhythm of home. This wasn't a place to impress, it was a place to belong. Unlike her LA estate, which hosted stars and celebrations, the New York penthouse was for her. A safe haven, a place of solitude. A reminder that beneath the star there was still the girl from the Bronx. She held onto the property until 2017, just 1 year before her passing. In 2020, it was listed for $3.9 million, drawing attention not just for its beauty, but for the legacy of the woman who lived there. Real estate agents saw a penthouse, but fans? They saw a personal archive of one of Hollywood's most enduring voices. Penny Marshall straddled two worlds, California Sun and New York Grit. And in both, she left behind more than property. She left behind presence. The Bronx girl who made Hollywood laugh. Before the sound stages, before the sitcoms, before the fame, there was the Bronx, and a little girl named Penny. Born Carol Penny Marshall. On October 15, 1943, she grew up at 3235 Grand Concourse in a classic Art Deco apartment building in the Bronx. The building itself had stories to tell. Its hallways once home to other future legends like Neil Simon, Ralph Lauren, and Calvin Klein. But Penny's story wasn't about glamour, it was about grit. Her mother, Marjorie Marshall, was a tough, no-nonsense tap dance teacher with a sharp tongue and a flair for drama. She ran the Marjorie Marshall Dance School out of their small apartment, teaching neighborhood kids routines while shouting counts over scratchy records. 1, 2, 3, step ball change. That was the soundtrack of Penny's childhood. At just 3 years old, she was thrown into the world of sequins, toe shoes, and tight choreography, not because she wanted to dance, but because her mother needed a performer. Penny would later joke, "I didn't want to dance." But it was either that or stay home and clean. Her father, Anthony Masciarelli, was an industrial filmmaker who later Americanized the family name to Marshall, hoping for a better shot at success in post-war America. He wasn't famous, but he gave Penny something even more valuable, an early glimpse into the power of storytelling through film. Together, her parents ran a home of contradictions. Chaotic yet structured, practical yet artistic. Cold at times, but oddly loving. Religion wasn't much of a factor unless there was a recital hall attached. Penny once joked that her mother picked churches based on which ones had the best stages. Even within her own family, showbiz ran deep. Her older brother, Gary Marshall, would go on to become one of the most influential creators in television history, behind Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, The Odd Couple, and more. Her sister Ronnie became a television producer. The Marshalls weren't just in the industry, they were the industry. But Penny? Penny was the wild card. She didn't have traditional beauty or Hollywood polish. What she had was timing and truth. And that unmistakable Bronx cadence that made every line feel lived in. She graduated from Walton High School, an all-girls public school, before enrolling at the University of New Mexico, studying math and psychology. But even then, life pulled her in a different direction. She married Michael Henry, had a daughter named Tracy, and dropped out of college. For years, she scraped by, working odd jobs, teaching dance, choreographing community theater, doing whatever it took to stay afloat. But in 1967, everything changed. She moved to Los Angeles, answering the call of her brother Gary, who was already making waves in Hollywood. He encouraged her to try acting. Penny wasn't naive. She didn't look like a starlet, but she had something more important: authenticity. That dry wit, those expressive eyes, and that natural deadpan charm that no one could fake. Bit parts came first, then small roles, and then one fateful audition that would change her life forever. Laverne DeFazio. She didn't act like Hollywood. She didn't look like Hollywood. But somehow, she became one of its most unforgettable stars. A legacy etched in laughter. Some people leave behind movies, some leave behind memories. Penny Marshall left both, and something more. She never set out to become a trailblazer. She didn't plan on breaking records or rewriting Hollywood's rules, but by being exactly who she was, funny, fearless, and flawed, Penny Marshall did all of it. As a director, she proved that women could handle big budgets, big stars, and big stories, without losing the warmth that made those stories matter. She didn't just helm big in a league of their own. She paved a road where there had been none before. She inspired a generation of female filmmakers to dream beyond what they'd been told was possible. She once said, "I led an oddly charmed life. I was a tomboy from the Bronx who ended up in Hollywood." But it was more than charm. It was talent, timing, and a deep understanding of human nature, its awkwardness, its heartbreak, its humor. Her work wasn't just entertaining, it was real. As an actress, she made millions laugh, but never by trying to be glamorous. She made comedy out of the everyday, the offbeat, the undeniably human. And off-screen? She was a friend, a mother, a grandmother, and a fierce protector of those she loved. Her circle was tight, her loyalty unshakable, and her generosity well known in the industry, even if she never bragged about it. In 2012, she gave us her final gift, her memoir, My Mother Was Nuts. It was funny, raw, and unapologetically honest, just like her. In its pages, she revealed the girl behind the lens, the woman behind the jokes, and the heart behind the icon. "I'm not anyone's first choice," she once said. But for so many of us, she was the only one who made us laugh and feel seen at the same time. When she passed in 2018, tributes poured in from across the world. But perhaps the most powerful tribute wasn't said aloud, it was felt. Every time someone quotes, "There's no crying in baseball," every time a woman steps behind a camera and knows she belongs, every time an outsider thinks, "If she did it, maybe I can too." That's Penny, still working, still inspiring, still making us laugh decades later. She didn't need to be loud to be powerful. She didn't need to shine to light the way. She was Penny Marshall, a Bronx girl who made Hollywood laugh and never stopped showing the world what was possible. What did Penny Marshall mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the legends of classic Hollywood. Thank you for watching, and to Penny, wherever you are, man, did we laugh a lot. Wish we still could.